Mocked at 40, chosen by the Mountain King. The wind howled through the narrow valley as Emily Carter stepped out of the small-town grocery store, clutching a brown paper bag close to her chest. The sun was dipping behind the tall pines of Rockstone Ridge, staining the sky a deep purple. She tried to ignore the whispers behind her, but they followed her like shadows she could never outrun. "There she is, 40 years old and still alone," one woman muttered loudly. "What does she expect? No man wants a woman that age." "Poor thing," another said, not even attempting to lower her voice. Emily swallowed the ache in her chest. She had lived in Evergreen Creek most of her life, but ever since her divorce at 35, the town treated her like a failed project, someone who simply didn't fit the mold anymore. She taught literature at the local high school, kept to herself, and spent her evenings reading by the fireplace in the cabin she rented at the edge of the woods. People talked. They always had. But today, their words hit differently, more sharply than usual. Because earlier that morning, she had received a letter from the landlord. Her rent was being doubled. And she simply couldn't afford it. She was going to have to move. Again. She took a long breath and forced herself forward, boots crunching over gravel. The air smelled like pine, snow, and the promise of another lonely winter. The richest mountain man. Down the road, a massive black truck rolled into town, coated with dust from the unpaved mountain trails. People turned to stare. Jackson Hale had returned. The whispers shifted instantly. There he is, the richest man on the ridge. He owns half the logging land up north. And he's single too. Handsome as sin. I heard he's impossible to impress. Never seen with a woman. Emily didn't bother looking. She had no reason to be interested in a man like him, wealthy, rugged, intimidatingly gorgeous. She had met him only once, years ago, when he came to the school to donate winter coats for the kids. He spoke little, but his eyes, they carried entire stories within them. She never forgot how those blue-gray eyes had briefly settled on her, softening for a breath before he looked away. Emily shook the thought from her head. That was a long time ago. And men like Jackson Hale didn't look twice at women like her. She walked toward her car. But fate had other plans. The near collision. As Emily reached for the car door, she stepped back to make room for a group of teenagers racing across the parking lot. She stumbled, and her bag tipped. Apples rolled everywhere. Great. She crouched down, cheeks burning, trying to grab everything before someone tripped. A shadow fell over her. A huge hand reached down and picked up an apple before she could. "You okay there?" a deep voice asked. Emily knew that voice. Her breath caught as she looked up. Jackson Hale was standing over her, the mountain sun behind him, making him look even taller, broad-shouldered, flannel shirt, rough beard, and eyes like a storm settling after years of unrest. I'm fine," she stammered, heart racing. He held her apple out. "This one's got a bruise. Want me to grab you a new one?" "I can manage," she whispered, embarrassed. He didn't budge. "Let me help." Before she could protest, he crouched beside her and gently picked up the scattered fruit. Not many men his size moved with such quiet patience. When he stood, he handed her the full bag. "There. Good as new." "Thank you," she managed. Then something strange happened. He didn't walk away. He just stood there, studying her, like she wasn't someone he vaguely recognized, but someone he actually remembered. "Emily Carter," he said slowly. "Haven't seen you in a long time." She blinked. "You remember my name?" He nodded once. "Course I do." Before she could respond, her ears caught another pair of whispers behind her. Imagine that, Jackson Hale talking to her. She's nearly twice his type. Jackson's jaw tightened. His eyes darkened. "Ignore them," Emily muttered, trying to leave. But Jackson wasn't about to ignore anything. The offer. Emily, he called, stopping her. Do you have a minute? She turned reluctantly. What is it? He cleared his throat. I'm fixing up the old Hale Ranch schoolhouse up near my land. Thought maybe you'd be interested in heading a little reading program there. Kids from the Ridge need someone patient. Someone who knows how to care. Emily stared. Why her? Why now? I'm not sure I'm the right. You are, he interrupted gently. She swallowed. It's too far from town. I don't have a truck that can handle the mountain trail. You will, he said quietly. If you want the job, I'll provide one. Her eyes widened. Jackson, that's too much. He shook his head. Not for someone who's worth it. No one had said words like that to her in years. Maybe ever. She hesitated. I'll think about it. He nodded. Fair enough. But, I hope you'll say yes. Their eyes held for a long breath. Then she walked away, heart beating with something she hadn't felt in a long time. Hope. The next week, Emily visited the schoolhouse 3 days later. It was beautiful. Old wood. Big windows. Surrounded by endless mountain sky. She ran her hand along the wall and whispered, "This place deserves love." You do too. She turned. Jackson stood behind her. Their eyes locked. I said I'd think about it, she replied softly. And, he stepped closer. She exhaled shakily. I'll take the job. A slow smile tugged his rugged features. Good, he whispered. You just made my week. Spending time together. Over the next month, Jackson drove her up the mountain every morning. They talked about books, childhood, heartbreaks, life. Emily found herself laughing, truly laughing, for the first time in years. Sometimes, when she spoke, he watched her like her words mattered more than the world itself. One snowy afternoon, as they were stacking books inside the schoolhouse, she asked, "Why me, Jackson?" His shoulders tensed. Then he stepped closer, dangerously close. Because you're strong, he said softly. Because you've lived. Because you see people. Because you're not like them. She swallowed. People talk, you know. About me. About my age. About. I don't give a damn what they talk about, he said, voice gravel and fire. I know what I see. She looked away, tears forming. Hey. His fingers brushed her cheek, gently turning her toward him. 40 isn't old. 40 is beautiful. And you, he exhaled slowly. You're the most beautiful woman I've seen in this town. Her breath stopped. Jackson. His hand dropped. Sorry. I shouldn't have said that. But she shook her head. I'm glad you did. And then, for the first time, she saw something in his eyes. Fear. Vulnerability. Longing. The real turning point. One evening, a storm rolled in fast. Emily stayed late at the schoolhouse finishing a lesson plan. The snow thickened. Her hands shivered. Then the door burst open. Jackson ran in, soaked, breathless. Emily, why didn't you call? The road's turning to ice. I didn't realize. He wrapped his coat around her shoulders. You're freezing. Before she could react, he pulled her into his arms, strong, warm, solid. You scared me, he whispered into her hair. Her heart thundered. Why? He didn't hesitate. Because I'm falling for you. And I don't want to lose you. Emily froze. The world seemed to stop. You, what? She breathed. He cupped her face, forehead resting against hers. I choose you, Emily. Not despite your age. Because of it. Because you know who you are. Because you're the only woman who's ever made me feel something real. Her tears fell. And this time, she didn't look away. She lifted a hand to his cheek. Then don't let go, she whispered. He didn't. He kissed her, slow, warm, certain, like he had been waiting half his life. The town's reaction. When Jackson held her hand walking into town the next week, the whispers exploded like wildfire. She's 40. He could have any woman. Why her? Jackson simply tightened his grip. And said loudly enough for everyone to hear. Because she's the only woman worthy of standing beside me. Emily's heart nearly burst. No one mocked her again. The ending. A year later, the renovated schoolhouse opened with children from the Ridge attending daily. Jackson built Emily a new cabin on his land, warm, wide-windowed, filled with light. Not because she needed saving, but because she finally allowed herself to be loved. And because a mountain man who could have chosen anyone, chose her, always her.